Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another one of my Honestly Let's Talk episodes. I have loved getting to have these weekly themed conversations with a variety of people that I call friends and mentors and all kinds of stuff. And so when I was thinking through kind of the next topic I wanted to talk about, those of you who have been following my journey for a while now know that for the last couple years, I've been sharing my own personal journey through grief. And when I thought about how much that it has been healing for me to talk about it and how much feedback I've gotten from others getting to hear pieces of my story, I thought, I want to have an episode over dealing with grief because I know that we all deal with it differently. And when I thought about who I wanted to have on this conversation, there was one person that came to my mind just because of I feel like I always see her. Like it's clear. You show your heart all the time. And you're somebody I greatly respect anyway. And so I thought, well, hey, this is my excuse to hang out with you too. So I'm so excited for my guest today, who is Katie. Katie, tell everybody kind of who you are.
Okay, thank you so much for having me, Todd. My name is Katie Mense. I am a educator. I'm a kindergarten teacher, and I met Todd through presenting and traveling and things like that. And yeah, I
There we
taught
go.
kindergarten. I taught kindergarten for
You got
15
kids?
years. Yes, I'm a mom. I have 3 boys at home, so.
And you also have this kind of side job that you do too? The
Yeah,
one chip?
yes. So I collaborated with my friend Adam DeFico, and we create hands-on resources for teachers and for primary classrooms. Um, Mainly, we focus on like morning tubs, and since we've gone a lot of virtual and we need social distancing, we have created little compact kits where kids can still get their hands on things and still be working those fine motor skills.
Well, and I know that's not our topic tonight, but I'm absolutely obsessed with what y'all do with One Chip, so I had to throw it in there to talk tonight a little bit. But, as I said at the top of this episode, today's conversation is going to be about dealing with grief. And before Katie and I talk, I want to kind of lay something out there and let everybody know that Katie nor I have all the answers. We are not anywhere near through our own journey with grief. And so, just like many of the other conversations I've had before, I just want to be clear that what we're going to share today is our personal experience and what has or hasn't worked for us and what we've been through. It may help you, or it may just be another tool in your chest for later down the road. And so today's conversation, like I said, is dealing with grief. And Katie, I really resonated with something that happened recently in your life that has been kind of a recent journey through your own experience with grief. Tell me a little bit more about what happened.
Okay. So I just want to warn you, like I never know what's going to set me off. It's a weird thing. Like sometimes I think I'm gonna get completely upset and I don't. And sometimes
Same
it just
here.
completely catches me off guard and I'm hysterical and I don't even know why. So I just wanted to lay that out there. It may or may not happen. But so as we all know, in March, the world just kind of took a huge turn, kind of shut down, especially at the beginning. It was just such a new thing. None of us knew what to do or expect. And I feel like we were all just scared to really do anything.
Right.
And my dad had he had for maybe about a year and a half, he had been diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer. But he was, they were treating it. It was a cancer where, it wasn't progressing quickly.
Mhm.
And he was on a treatment to where, they thought he could live with it for a really long time and be able, do his normal thing. His chemo that he was on like a pump. And so, like, it definitely affected him, but he didn't get super sick.
Right.
He didn't, he still had enough energy to function. He didn't lose his hair or anything like that. Um, and then March came, and obviously he was at risk, so it was scary, to do anything or to go anywhere. And then April came around, and my dad is a huge outdoorsman,
Mhm.
a huge hunter and fisherman, huge fisherman. Like every chance he got, he was out fishing. So finally he was like, you know what? Because they have a place at Reelfoot Lake. It's in Tennessee. They have, it's just in this small little place that has like, I don't know, maybe like 6 or 7 campers. So like big campers, like, kind of like trailers.
Right.
And so they're close with all the people in their little place. And so they would, eat together, have like
Mhm.
potlucks, barbecue together, things like that. And so finally he was just like, I'm, you know, I don't even know how much time I have left. I'm going. I'm gonna go. He's gonna be fishing. He was gonna be outside, so
Right.
he felt comfortable enough to do that. So they went to the camper, and they were going to come home, but Dad was like, "No, let's just stay one more day." Um, it was kind of rainy, but he went out fishing, and oftentimes, a friend of his would go fishing with him, but he didn't
Mhm.
that day. Um, and then ended up he most likely had a massive heart attack. Um, they just found him, right next to, well, pretty close to his boat.
Right.
Not sure how long he had been in the water, um, but yeah, so he had most likely had a massive heart attack, fell out of his boat, and they found his body in the water. So,
Well,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Well,
I just
go ahead.
I remember that day.
Mhm.
I was making dinner, and my mom called, and she told me, she said, Dad's gone, and it takes you a minute to process
Right.
what even she's talking about. And she said they found him, or she said they found his boat. And at that minute, like,
Of course. Of course.
I just like start. I don't even know. I think I started screaming. Um, ran outside because my husband was outside working down the drive. We have a really long driveway. We live out in the middle of the woods, and he was working like halfway down our driveway with someone. And so I called his cell phone, and I said, "You need to come back right." I was like screaming, "You need to
Mhm.
come back right now!" So he came back, and I remember I like had just like collapsed, and I was on the ground like hysterical. And that's really all I
You know,
remember, I guess.
it to me, it's so interesting hearing about, I feel like at some point in our life, we're all going to lose someone, and we all go through that and tie us together. But for me, when I lost my parent, my mom, that was a different feeling of loss than when I had lost other people in my life
Ugh,
before. But you're exactly right. It's like, I think when we hear that news initially, especially when it's an unexpected passing,
yeah,
or an unexpected event that goes on, it's a whole nother level of shock. Because, for me, it was like when we had to make that call to remove life support, I was like, oh my gosh. I didn't get emotional right then. I
yeah,
teared up a little bit, but I was just kind of like, okay, this is what I have to do. I'm the person that has to take care of this. But I remember that, my parents aren't married, haven't been married since I was in 7th grade. But I know that my dad still wanted to be involved with knowing what was going on so he could support me and my brother. And I remember he was the first call that I made, and I was holding it. I was like, okay, I can do this. I'm going to have to. So I call him and the moment I heard his voice on the
Yeah.
phone, I just lost it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, we all kind of deal with that differently about when it hits us and then
Yeah.
that emotion. And then, so, all this happens. And the first question I have is, telling people in your life that you're close to is difficult because you don't even know how to say, hey, my dad just died.
Yeah.
Or my mom I had to just say goodbye to my mom. Like, that's hard to say. But I'm interested, though, to ask, how did the conversation with your boys happen?
Well, I mean, they were home.
Mm,
So I remember Finn was in the bathtub. The other two were outside. But
right,
my littlest one, he's in second grade. And he was in the bathtub. So he heard me screaming.
right.
Um, he came outside and saw me on the ground hysterical and couldn't stand. And, so he, like, they, they didn't really get the conversation part
Right,
of it.
of
They
course.
just kind of experienced it.
Mhm.
So,
And so, when things initially happen like this, from on my own experience, there was a lot of outpouring of support from people in your life, from relatives, from neighbors, from things like that. Did you have that kind of wrap around you as well whenever everything happened and came out?
oh my gosh, yes. I'm a very, very, very lucky person. I have so many amazing people um, in my life. Is my my family is very, very close, um, and so I have all my my cousins. Like they're like my first best friends.
Uh-huh.
Like, and there's just tons of us, and we're like all the same age.
Right.
Um, so we've always been very, very close. So I have them, and then I have a group of girls that I've been friends with since second grade, and then the
Wow.
others since my freshman year of high school. And I'm 41 now, so and they are like they are there for everything,
Mhm. Right.
always. Talk to them every day, see them all the time. So I have them. I'm very, very, very close with my brother. And
Mhm.
then I also have friends all
Yeah.
over the country from what I do. I'm at my friend Holly Ely's house right now.
Well,
So,
Katie, what I found though interesting about grief and dealing with it is something that I didn't expect. I had a friend tell me, one of my friends lost a child, and he talked about how the hardest part for him was about a month or two after
yes,
the funeral. He said, he said, I feel even worse now than I did when I lost him because it's like everybody has forgotten or
yeah,
moved on, and I still feel like it happened 5 minutes ago.
yeah,
And when he told me that, I mean, that stuck with me, and I thought, okay, I need to make sure that he's on my list to check in on, that I don't forget about him.
hmm,
But it didn't really truly resonate with me until I went through my experience. and
hmm,
and just like he said, a couple months after, there was so much outpouring of love and support, and it was such an important thing to have in that moment.
yes,
Oh, but at the same time, about a month or two after, it hit me, and I was like, everybody's moved on, and I feel like I'm still carrying all this baggage. And there's even times, I mean, the loss of my mother was almost 3 years ago now, and I still find things that I'm like, why is this still getting to me? And so
yeah,
I know yours was about 9, 10. Oh my goodness. Yours was about 9 or 10 months ago. And so I'd love to know, with your own journey, have you kind of experienced that same thing of that own personal thought of, why am I not moved on, but it seems like everybody else has?
yeah. It's a weird feeling because it's like everything changes, but nothing changes. Like your whole world changes, but I mean, things go on. Life goes on like nothing happened when to you, like you lost everything. So
Right.
it's hard to make sense of really because to you everything has changed, but to the world, you know, it goes on. Nothing really changes.
Have you found
So
anything that really works for you in kind of helping you work through the emotions?
well, some things that I have found that help a lot. Like this is not something that I can control, but sometimes I have dreams about my dad, and it's like he's there, you know.
Yeah.
So that's I don't know. It's cool because it like you wake up and you feel like you were just with him. You know what I mean? I don't. It's hard to explain, but that it just I don't know. It almost feels like he visited
Right.
because
Yeah. It's like you
you get
got
all
that personal time with him.
yeah, you get all the same feelings, you know, he in my dreams he talks the same, he moves the same and you know, you don't you never see that again. So it's kind of cool to be able to kind of experience that.
Right.
Another thing is I didn't get any tattoos until I was 35. Now I'm 41 and I have a couple of them now, but I just I don't know, there's something very therapeutic about it. So, a couple months after my dad died, I got this, and
Oh, I
it is
love it.
actually the coordinates of Reelfoot, which was his favorite place to fish, and you know, the place where he passed away and where we spread his ashes. So that's the coordinates. And then the heart is actually fishing hooks. And then underneath it says, "Hey kid," which was what he said to me every single time I saw him. He would say, "Hey kid."
I love
So,
that. Well, so does he have a gravesite?
yes.
So one thing that I'm interested to know is, do you go visit the gravesite? Because I know for some people that's different, and I know for my mom's gravesite, we got her a little heartstone that has two little vases that my wife and I put flowers in, and I've always thought when I lost somebody close to me, it'd be like in the movies where I'd go and I'd sit by the graveside and
Yeah.
I'd lay and we'd go visit there all the time. I find it really difficult to go there because for me it's like she's not there.
Yeah.
That's not where she is. That's where we laid her to rest. And I do go there and we replace the flowers and I just say, "Hey mom, here's what's going on right now," and then we leave. Like it's too weird for me to
hmm
be in that space. What is that like for you?
So my mom, it's helpful for my mom. She likes to go there and visit. But yeah, I'm like you. I no, I don't like it at all. And my dad was not into that either. Like he wanted to be cremated, you know, and he agreed because they had my mom and him have like a joint gravesite. So he was cremated and we put some of his ashes there at the gravesite and then put some of them um we went out in a boat and put them in the lake where he would always fish. So I think to me, I don't know. Like when you're gone, it's I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah,
I feel like he belongs at the lake where he would have, you know, where he wanted to
right,
be.
right.
And to visit a gravesite is almost it's depressing to me. I don't like it. I'd much rather go to the lake and visit him there.
Now I know, when somebody's dealing with a loss, sometimes they don't want to talk about it at all. And so, what advice do you have for people who are like, "I want to support my friend who lost someone, but I don't know how to do it well." What kind of things do you find are really beneficial? Or
Uh,
what advice would you have for somebody who wants to support a friend who recently lost somebody?
it is very, very difficult because everyone deals with it so differently.
Right.
So I would just try to have the conversation of what can I do for, what can I do for you, whether it's, taking the kids for a day or, picking up some groceries at the store or sitting and talking or, it's different for everybody. And like you said, some people don't want to talk about it and some people need to talk about it. So just being there for them and listening if they want to talk and just helping them and especially, in those few months afterwards and just helping them with tasks that, it's like it's hard to know what triggers things, but I
Right.
know because my dad passed away at the lake, going home
Mhm.
after that, uh, that was like that was so hard.
Yeah.
And then, going out to the shed with all of his stuff, like,
Mhm.
and then eventually, finally, when my mom went ahead and turned his phone off, like,
Yeah.
it's just such a final thing that you don't know it's going to hit you so hard, but those things that you deal with later on that you have to do and uh it's just being there for people through and just checking on them, like you said, because
Mhm.
2, 3, 4 months down the road, when you've got to, go through his clothes or turn his
Mhm.
phone off or uh, just make those decisions about stuff, it's so hard because it's so final,
Yeah. And and so many of those decisions aren't made right away. Like you said, the same
Right.
with my mom's phone. We did not turn her phone off right away. Like because I think part of me was in the back of my head going, no, because that's another door closed. That's
Yep.
another nail
Yep.
in nail to prove that, this is it. And
Yep.
so and it's funny because just like you said, there's some things that I think I steer away from because I think this is going to set me off. And then when I finally go to like deal with a box of her stuff, I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, never mind.
Yeah.
I'm
I
doing fine
know.
with this. And then
I
we
know.
went and, we're clearing out our guest bedroom and there's some boxes of hers in there and we opened one and it was shirts of hers and my entire life, she has always worn the same perfume. And so as soon as I opened
So
the
you
box, I
smelled
was
it.
like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay. Like it's not the shirts that's getting me, it's the
The
smell. Like
smell.
I can smell her and I
Mhm.
know that's her smell. And I
Ah.
know too for me, the holidays were is
Mhm.
now not as much, but the first year because my mom was such a
Oh.
driving force in the way the holidays were organized and what
Mhm.
was done that when that piece was missing, it was so glaringly obvious. And
Yeah.
so I know that, just having people check in. I have a couple of friends that I'll just get a random text from, just say, just want to see how you were doing today. And I'm like, that was really all I needed.
Yeah.
That and I
Yep.
don't need to tell anybody that it was a bad day, but it was like, oh, okay,
Mhm.
I'm not walking through this. And we convince ourselves we go through this by ourselves, but we don't. And so, with it
It
being
feels like that because it's so personal
Mhm.
when it's somebody, like your mom, like your dad, but e everybody, experiences that at certain times throughout their life.
Yeah.
It might be a different experience, but everybody experiences loss.
And we all have relationships differently with people, and
Right.
so and things affect all of us differently. And so I think, if I was thinking of advice to give someone, I'd keep that in there too, about have grace for people,
Yes.
because just because you may have lost somebody and you were able to function and move forward a month later, there may be somebody who still can't get out of bed a month later. Because
Yes.
I shared this, I don't remember where I shared this, may have been a blog or something, but I so vividly remember about 7 months after my mom had passed. I was just having a day of things triggering me. And I heard somebody make the comment, who was around me in my professional life, say, man, is he ever going to get over that? And I just thought, Can I not just have a moment? Like, I've held it together really good these last
Yeah,
couple of months. I just want a moment. And so I think, for me too, I'm a person of faith, but I didn't want to hear all the
no,
flowery words or the this happened for a reason,
no,
it's gonna
no, no,
get
no, no.
better. And so I always tell people, don't ever say that to
I
somebody
don't
because
even
in the
like.
moment it does not help.
I don't even, and I know this is the standard thing to say, but like on Facebook, every single thing was, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry," and and I know but it's like it just feels when it's like 100 comments, it just feels so minimal. I don't even know how to explain it. Like
And they're trying, but
I
that they're
know,
trying, they don't know what to
I
say,
know,
so they're trying to say something, but in the end, you're kind of like, okay,
there really are no
this does
words that
nothing for
you could
me.
say. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but like you were, one more thing, like you were saying, and I know that you might be one of the only people I told this to because you texted and checked on me one day just to see how I was doing. And I told you about, I have that dry erase calendar in my office.
Hmm.
And on that calendar is still March. Even right now, it's still March. And, after all the craziness of the pandemic and after dad passed away, and I finally went back to my office and I was going to erase that, and I just lost it. Because March, everything was normal.
Yeah.
Dad was still here. Like my world was still, so still on that calendar is March. I never erased it because I'm like, if it's gonna upset me that bad, I'm just
Mhm.
leaving it there for now.
Yep, and then that's totally fine. Like
Yeah,
that it's not hurting anybody, and for you, you're not ready to do that yet, so don't do it.
I
That's my
know.
I'm not a doctor, so don't
No.
anybody take my advice as doctor advice, but that's how exactly how I worked through it. It was like there's
Hmm.
so many parts of this that I'm almost 3 years removed, and I'm just now going through this box or that
Yes.
box. And some of it was really easy. I was like, hey, I know that my mom would want these people to have this. I know she'd want me to give this away. Other
Hmm.
stuff, I was like, I don't even want to look at that yet.
Yeah.
And then especially too, like I posted online yesterday. I was going through a photo album, and we were trying to digitize everything to save space. And of course, the first photo album I pick up is a photo album that she had made just of me and her in my first year of birth. And I was like, really, is this the first one I have to go through when I have kids on the way too, and I'm thinking about all this stuff?
Yes.
But no, Katie, I'm so grateful for you to come on here because I think what I want people to know too is you don't have to talk about your grief right away publicly if you are not ready to. Uh,
Yes.
and I know when I asked you, I was wondering, are you gonna be ready to share? And you were kind of like, well, I may get emotional, and I was like, I may get emotional too, so it's okay.
Because
But
I'm a person that, like I said, I never know what's going to set me off. Some things I think I'm going to, and then I don't, and then But also, if I start crying, I it's almost impossible for me to stop. So I was kind of afraid that I was going to be like on this video, but
Well, what I will
we're
say
good.
about this is, this whole honestly let's talk is a part of my Tell Your Story series, and over the last couple of years, I have really seen the proof that when we tell all the pieces of our story, that's where we open minds, change hearts, bring people in, help people feel less alone. And
Mhm.
if you had asked me 3 years ago if I thought we should be out there talking about our grief, things like that, I would have said, no, you're crazy. Like that stuff I keep inside. I'm not sharing that with anybody. But as
Mhm.
I've shared my own journey and the countless people that have come up and said, me too, or that really helped me feel like I wasn't the only
Yeah.
one, I thought it's just such a reminder of even the hard parts of our story, even the painful parts of our story, help others. And so I am so grateful for you and your vulnerability here today to share. So thank you for being a guest with me today, Katie.
Thank you so much for having me, Todd.
And thank you, everybody, for joining another Honestly Let's Talk. If you are somebody today that is dealing with your own version of grief, know that you are not alone. And if you are in a hole that you can't seem to find yourself out to get out of, know that it is okay to seek professional help as well, whether that is a therapist or medication or anything like that. And speaking of therapists, join next week's Honestly Let's Talk as we'll be talking about the power of therapy. You can check out all the past episodes of Honestly Let's Talk and tell your story on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple, YouTube, wherever it's there. Go follow Katie. Go check out all of her stuff. Buy 100 bins from the One Chip Eating, all that stuff. Like, go support Katie. She's amazing. But Katie, thank you. And thank you, everybody. Have a great night.